Welcome to Changing Suits. We're your hosts, Val
and Taj, discussing the latest news, views, and general life for us Western Asians.
Follow us on Instagram and Facebook, changing_suits, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Hi, welcome to Changing Suits. I'm Val.
And I'm Taj.
Today, we're going to do the second part of our last podcast. So we'll be discussing divorce, because obviously that's the next part of marriage, isn't it?
That's so positive, isn't it, Val? Marriage? Oh, you're definitely going to have a divorce.
I mean, we did think it was a natural progression, to be fair, for the next podcast, right?
To be honest, we did. Exactly. And I kept pushing for it.
So. And I didn't want this to be, but you were very pro, so don't turn this around on me. Okay, so divorce. A nice light-hearted topic for today. Where to start? The marriage wasn't going too great. You spent a bit of time together. You were like, this isn't working for me.
Should we start from what could be the reasons for divorce? Because there's so many reasons. And is there a right reason for divorce?
Well, I think we started the last podcast on why would you want to get married to, what do you find attractive in your partner and this, that, and the other. And I always think it's interesting because I think you realize who you want to marry within the first 3 months of talking to someone. But I also think in your heart of hearts, if
you want to divorce them.
Well, if you're trying to convince yourself that this is the right person to marry. So I was listening to a song the other day. It was a Pink song. And in there's a line in there. I haven't listened to it in a long time, but I listened to it the other day. And it basically says, why do we fall in love so easy, even when it's not right? So basically, you'll sort of convince yourself that you're in love with someone, but you know that it's not right. So that just brought me back to that topic.
Is that because we feel that we need to have, that we're at that stage of life and maybe people around us are getting married, so we do it as well? So you kind of force yourself to think, okay, I need to get married, I need to love someone, and automatically you're open for it?
I don't know, I think you do sort of convince yourself that, yes, I can do this, and yes, it will carry on and it'll be fine. But in your heart of hearts, you know if it will. Obviously, this isn't generalized, because I think a lot of people can say, no, actually, I went into marriage to think this was forever. And then obviously that didn't happen. So
I wonder if you can be 100% about anything in life.
I said again on the last podcast, and this is where the links are so crucial between the two podcasts. I feel that people are always changing, always learning, always different. And if you are on the same path together and you spend a lot of time together, and I think time is really important, then you tend to have the same, and you have the same interests and things like that, then you're sort of going in the same direction. But then when you start splitting off, and I'm not saying you need to spend 24 hours of the day together, but when you start having your own hobbies, which there's nothing wrong with, if you spend so much time not being with each other, you tend to grow in different directions. And I think that's a big cause of it.
But yeah, I do agree. But some people just carry on even if that is the cause of it, and they know that there's a big split between them and they're just not on the same page, and they just carry on with life. I think our parents, quite a lot of, I always say this, but in our parents' generation, they just got on with it.
That is a good point though, isn't it?
It is.
What made them get on with it? Whereas now we feel like we've got that choice of, I don't know if choice is the right word, but let's use it because I don't know an alternative word. Nothing's popping in my head. But now we feel like we don't have to stick in a situation if we're not happy.
Exactly. And COVID, again, more than anything, has made people reevaluate their life, and life's too short. And why stay in something that you're unhappy in? Like I was saying, there could be many reasons why you're unhappy. it could be down to abusive behavior from one person to the other, domestic violence. It doesn't have to be physical, it could be mental as well. Because mental abuse can wear a person down, should I say, and just, you could be crying from day to day just because, you can't handle the abuse that you're getting mentally. And now in Asian community, if you said to someone he was being horrible to me, I think 9 times out of 10 people would say, is that a reason to get divorced? Just get on with it. He's saying a couple of words. It's nothing major. Just get on with it.
You know my opinion of what my view has been on divorce previously. And, I think over the last podcast, I think it's quite clear I'm pretty backwards and I'm pretty much straight down the line. Um, and my answer would have been, had this been a few years ago, just stick at it for the kids' sake, for this sake, for that sake. Just, married, carry on, plow on, basically. But I feel like my view has changed because if you're not happy, is there a point?
And I'm pretty surprised that your view did change. And it's only been a little while ago that you said that your view changed, because you were like very rigid, as in, no, carry on. It doesn't matter. Do it for the children. Because that's another thing. If the couple have children, the children suffer as well. Or do they? The question is, do they suffer? Is it better that you split up? Is it better for the whole family dynamic? That is it better to stay together, or is it better to stay apart?
It's a tough one. I mean, if you end up staying together and it's just constant fights, is there any point of it? They're being brought up and I have completely changed my view on this.
But then if you give it a while, because I don't think you should say, right, I've had a fight, I've had a couple, that's it, let's end it. How do you know? Because pretty much I would say a lot of marriages do go through rough patches where you're thinking, okay, I just want to walk out the door. Now, at what point do you decide it's time to walk out the door? Is it your first fight, your 10th fight, 30 years down the line?
I think
Is there a right time?
I mean, I haven't been through it myself, but if I ever got to that stage, I'd want to feel like if I ever made that decision, that I gave it my all. And by giving it your all, I mean, or my all, that would take time, right? You can't just say, oh, I made him roti today and I still don't feel very happy, so I'm going to divorce him. I'm not saying that. To give it, you'd have to give it time.
Now, the old way of when someone wanted to basically split up, or if there was a problem, was that pretty much the uncles, aunties, mum, dad would come round to the boy's house and everyone will sit down and discuss, hey, what should we do? What's going on? But that isn't the case these days. Times have changed. Had they changed for the better? Had they changed for the worse? That is a question in itself. Because 20 years ago, like we said, we've had loads of divorces in our family. 20 years ago, it was a case of everyone would get together and the boy and girl would listen to what the elders say. But is that because we were a bit more, not naive, but willing to listen to everyone's opinions and then just give it a shot and then just carry on basically down the line of, hey, we'll just give it a shot and still suffer? What has made the change of what it used to be about the family coming together and deciding what should happen with the couple, and now where it's the couple that decide, right, that's it, and then the family are secondary in saying, okay?
I think whatever that turning point is, and I suppose that kind of a turning point of everyone having to sit down and sort of discuss your marriage would be a massive turning point, unless there's a change on the other side of that from both parties. Because look, a marriage is two people, and I'm not saying that one person's to blame and the other one's not, or that both of them are to blame. It's not, that's not what I'm saying, but there has to be a fundamental change in both people. Whether, I don't know, it's a tough one, because we've seen it where a marriage could go on for a long time and then you think at the end of it, what was the point? Yeah, what was the point? Because time, I always say this, time is of the essence. Money comes and goes, but we're never going to get that time back. So it's a real tough one.
And then once the person is at the point of saying, right, that's it, it's time that we want a divorce. And then you've got the community side. As Asians, it seems like everything is about the community. First of all, it would be the family, then it would be the community. And basically, the family want to keep the couple together primarily, I can't even say the word, primarily because obviously they want to do it because they want their kids to be happy. But a big factor is, what will the community say?
Mm.
Oh God, they've split up. Oh, another one split up in their family.
But do you know what? I think things have moved on. So 20 years ago, this was a major factor because we had a divorce about 20 years ago in our family, and it was one of the first divorce in our family, and it was a bombshell. It was, it,
The end of the world. It
well, yeah,
was.
it felt like that. It stung very, very hard, and we all changed a lot from that. Whereas now, 20 years on, it feels like, well, okay, fine, it didn't happen. And that's also, I feel, like a community thing as well. Because it's happening so much, I don't think the community really are surprised when anyone gets divorced. It doesn't matter who it is.
But is it because we've had so many divorces in our family that we're like almost hardened to it, and it's like, hey, next one, next one? Or is it, if we hadn't had any divorce in our family, and for example, if it happened tomorrow and someone got divorced tomorrow, would that have been the shock? Or
Yeah.
is it because the whole community has changed? I personally think it's because we've been through it so many times in various members of our family going through really hardships. I think we've seen it more from the girls' side because we've got quite a lot of girls in our family. So my dad's side, my mum's side, everyone's side, it seems like. But it's been always the girls' side that we've been on. And to be honest, I feel the girls' side, the impact is more
Why'd you,
because
why'd you say that?
because once a girl gets divorced, it's almost like she's rejected from the community. And it's like,
But then
okay,
this goes back to what we said, again, linking it back to the previous podcast. Is it because a majority of the time the girl tends to move to where her husband's family is, and it might be far away from her own family, in which case the community that she surrounded herself with is pretty much the one her husband's family knows anyway. So she is affected
but even when she
because of
comes
that.
back to her own family, there's still that stigma attached.
But
So
do
I
you know
don't
what? It's
think it's.
really interesting actually, because I found getting married, and I think I remember you saying this on a previous podcast as well, but going home feels different. It's not the same as before we got married. So it's a
Yeah.
tough one, even going home, just because things have changed.
Yeah, because in the Asian community, if you do split up from your partner, most likely the first thing that you would do is go back to your parents' house, and then you're living almost like that life, that child life that you used to live. So you're back where you started, and you
Mm.
have to live by your parents' rules, basically. Um, and that's tough in itself. But one of the main reasons why I wanted to do this podcast as well is because we had one of our listeners and basically message and say we need to discuss marriage, divorce for both sides, male and female, and explaining how tough it is to get remarried. Because once you've been divorced, you are basically seen as secondhand goods, and it's hard to get remarried.
Okay, so you've said a few things just in the fact that the listener had sent this message from both sides, for example. So yeah, we've seen it from a girl side a lot of the times. So we've seen the impact of it. So I do know someone that isn't yet married, for example, and has never been married, but they've come to an age, I think they're about in their mid-40s now, and they're like, well, the people that we're meeting have usually been divorced, and I don't want someone divorced, but I know that's the compromise I'm going to have to make.
The compromise, that's the key
Exactly.
word.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And what
And
is
then
the
one step, and then
yeah.
one step further, if they've got kids.
Okay, let's not include the kids bit. What is the compromise when someone's being remarried? Is it because in our minds, we see that the person, it is to do with, okay, not a very Asian thing to say, but losing virginity in your first wedding, you're not fresh anymore? Is
Mm.
that what the compromise is? Now you're almost secondhand.
I agree that that might have been the thing before, but if I was in the same situation, it would be more the fact that I'd want to find out why they got divorced. So who's I know this might sound a bit too black and white and there's no grey area, but whose fault was it? What happened? Is it likely to happen again? That
But the
sort of
thing is, the saying, there's three sides to a story: my side, your story, side, and then the truth. I don't
Yep.
think you ever find out what the truth is, because you're always going to hear from the side that you're going to marry, and their side is always going to be the right side because it's their side you hear.
Yeah.
How would you go about doing those investigations?
Well, you'd contact the other person's wife.
Bajola.
You'd sit down for a coffee. Yeah, then that
Okay.
person would be your bajola.
I don't think so.
But yeah, of course, it is a tough one because those questions that you would have asked your partner had they not been married are not the same questions you'd be asking them if they were a divorcee. And I know I use compromise and I use compromise on purpose, but it does bring up a whole other conversation that you wouldn't have otherwise had. That person would have, had that relationship, emotional, physical, whatever part of that comes as part of a marriage, regardless of if you got on with the person or not. Aside from the physical side of it, it's the emotional side as well. That person was attached to someone else at some point.
Is that because in our generation, well, in Asian community, it's still seen that people don't go out with each other? So it's
Mm,
almost like the first relationship you have is the one that you get married, and that is so not true.
yeah, fair enough.
That is so not true. But maybe in our minds, we think that is the first relationship that you've had, and the reason why the compromise comes in is because you think, okay, maybe once I get married to this person, say if we're doing something, they might have a, I don't know, memory of what happened with
They
their
say the other
previous.
person's name.
No, that would really be bad. But they might remember something from what happened in their previous relationship, and that might be the compromise because they're remembering their past.
Mm.
But we all come with a past. These days, people go out with, each other, dating and everything, and everyone's got a past. So I don't know if we're living in this make believe world that the only relationship people have is the one, a deep one, is the one that you get married. But could you say that a marriage, that we think that if you just go out with someone, you can't have a deep relationship, and there's a difference between marriage and a deep relationship, just dating? Because would you ask the question,
I did.
almost, uh, how many people have you gone out with?
Yeah, I did. That was questions that I asked anyway.
But why wasn't that a compromise then? Because they've been out with someone.
Because I think, depending on how long that person, however long those people were talking to each other, I think that makes a massive difference. You're not going to find out everything about a person emotionally, all this sort of stuff about their family, and you're not going to find that out within a few days. If it was a few years, that's where I'd be like, oh, okay, regardless of if they got married or not, because that's a lot longer, and then you find out what the person's like, and there's that deeper connection.
Yeah, there always be that thing in your mind is, oh, did your partner want to get married to that person? Is it because it just didn't work out? Oh, we're doing this. Are we happy? Are we truly happy? Are they still thinking about that person?
But I
Could it
don't
have
know. I
been?
mean, that's a lot of effort. I just think that you need to get on with your life after that. I mean, how long can you keep going round in circles with that, right?
But I think people do. I think that's human nature to do that. And to be honest, when I was looking to get married, one of the questions was, were you divorced? And if you were, I wouldn't have married.
Yeah, but times have changed. Times have
But now,
changed.
and
Yeah.
I agree, and now that was however many years ago, about 11 years, 12 years ago. But now, if I was to do it again, say if I wasn't married, I'd be really, yeah, if say if I wasn't married and I'd done it now, I think I wouldn't be so picky about someone being divorced. Is that because I'm older, or would I?
Well, it
Is it
comes with it comes with age, because a lot of the times, if someone's divorced, they tend to, yeah, they are going to be older. Whereas if you were still in your, if you were still 23, you probably wouldn't want someone that is divorced. So I think it comes with age, because you're more likely to find someone that is divorced once you hit your 40s anyway.
Yeah. Another point that was brought up by this particular listener was that they don't drink alcohol and they're male, and girls don't like the fact that they're um, male and then they don't drink, because the typical Punjabi culture is that, a guy drinking and dancing stuff, that is the culture wise. And they're finding it difficult to find someone because they're finding that girls get put off for not being drinking. And that is something to think about, to be honest. But I think that's to do with the community that you mix with and mingle with, basically. Because in our family, no one drinks, so we obviously went for people that didn't drink. So that wasn't the issue.
See, I think that's a tough one, because you've got a few layers there. Because not only have you got the fact that the divorce is there, which is a massive thing, but then you've also got, the culture. I do agree it's a community thing. If I was that person, now I'm not trying to be the agony aunt, you're just looking in the wrong place. If people that you're talking to are like, no, I'm not happy that you don't drink, then you need to go and find someone somewhere else. i,
Yeah.
I think I would have thought.
One of the things also with being divorced is, again, community thing, because community is so big, as in influencing the decisions that we make, to be honest, the big decisions that we make. And one of the things is, when you go out, you don't want to bump into an auntie. It's always the auntie, isn't it?
Yeah, I always wonder. I mean, you tend to bring up community auntie quite a lot. I'm like, I don't have much of those thoughts, I guess.
So you bump into that local auntie who's like,
But
"Oh,
you can ask her if she knows anyone. So look, yesterday.
wait, she's gonna do the gossip bit first. She's gonna
Oh,
like, oh,
I thought I would have been like, look, stop with your gossip. You obviously know a lot of people. I filed for divorce yesterday. I need another guy tomorrow.
that does not happen like that, because what you would do is what we, again, saying that the last podcast is very linked with this one, is how I mentioned about in Norway. I met quite a lot of girls that had been divorced, and they were basically traveling away from the local godra, so their temple, because they didn't want to be in that community where people ask them that question. And that happens here, and it happens all over the world. I'm not saying that everyone travels away from where their worship place is, but they don't want to be in that community because they don't want to face that question, because they're going through so many of their own emotions and trying to deal with them. And then you've got this other thing on top of it where you have to answer people's questions. I don't always think it's people being nosy. It can be out of concern as well. But that
No, I
person,
don't. I don't agree. If it was out of
don't you?
concern, no one would say anything to anyone, because if they were concerned about you, then they just let you. It takes time to get over anything, especially a divorce. It's a massive thing, regardless of, obviously it gets more and more complicated as the years go on. But if that person cared about you, they just butt out and not say anything, because no one after a divorce or a separation wants to hear about it from someone else that has no idea what happened internally.
And also, haven't you found in quite a lot of cases, the woman always gets blamed? It doesn't matter if the man's had an affair or, was physically abusive. It's always turns around in, how did you prod him to make you beat you up?
Yeah.
How did you do this? How was it your fault? And that still does go on, because it's the woman is blamed for a majority of the times, because I know there's going to be sometimes the odd occasion that there isn't. a majority of times it's the woman's fault for the breakup, that she didn't hold it together, that she's the one that maybe is the one that caused the fighting to happen. Oh, why did you break up? He only swore at you a couple of times. Get over it. What's that? It's only words. But again, this is the deep rooted thing about the Asian community, not so still, on that journey about dealing with mental health.
Mm.
And I don't think we're quite there. But then I suppose not any community is quite there with the mental health side of things.
But you know what? I think I do agree. A lot of the blame does go on the woman. But the other side is sometimes if you're in that situation, you feel like everyone's talking about you.
Yeah.
So perhaps that might be another part of it where you think, oh, they're blaming me for what's happened. But you know what? I mean, we can all throw stones, but it's the person living on the day-to-day basis that still needs to think, hey, was it worth it, regardless of what anyone else is saying?
Because, like we said, if you got out of the marriage, I'm not encouraging people to get divorced, but if you got out of the marriage sooner, maybe that will give you time to heal and then maybe remarry or start dating or something like that. I'm not saying that you want to remarry, because some people maybe the
See,
marriage was
I
so
don't
bad that you want to remarry and it just
see.
scars you for life.
See, I don't think if I got divorced right now with the situation I'm in, like with kids and stuff, I don't think I'd want to get married again. And I'm not, I know we joke about us being old, but we're not, we're relatively not that old. So I
No,
could if
we're
I
not.
wanted, but I don't think I would.
Why wouldn't you?
It's a lot of hassle. I mean, I don't think I would for my kids' sake. I know that sounds like a really old school thing to say, but also the emotional side. I mean, you went through it once. Would you want to go through it again? I mean, I'm not at the stage where I'd be like, okay, it's physically drained me, but I'd imagine if I got to that stage, it would have emotionally drained me.
But then it might be a healing process. That's why I'm saying, if you get out of the marriage and you think it's not going to work, is it worth trying again when you've got those years and you can, emotionally heal? Um, and then you might come to a point where you think, I want to remarry, because you don't know what life throws at you. You might think, I don't want to be alone all my life. It might be that you want to start dating, etc. It doesn't have to be marriage,
Mm.
but you don't want to be alone when your kids eventually move away.
Let's
Have
okay.
is
So let's do this. I think another a massive part that we're not talking about, and I'm sure we were planning to get to it, but let's just get to it. Having kids,
Yep.
kids in a marriage, because where we are right now, we've both got kids.
Mm.
If the worst was to happen and we end up getting divorced, what next? I mean, is it the right decision to actually get divorced because we've got kids? I know we touched on it a bit earlier.
See, I'm of the thinking, if the situation at home is just too unstable, unsettled, then I think that's a negative impact on the kids. So I don't think there's anything wrong with getting divorced. It sounds like I'm encouraging people to get divorced. I am not encouraging
But the
that.
tough thing is, and I'm just looking at it from my point of view, I don't think anyone else would look after my kids as well as my husband would. It doesn't matter what, and again, different situations. I'm sure, there's loads of great people, great marriages, second marriage, da da da. But still, no one would love my kids and do as much as my husband does. In which case, that would be a massive negative for them.
But we know a couple that so quite I think it was about 15 years ago, more than that, that they got divorced and she got remarried, and the guy is so lovely and he treats the kids, well, she's got one child, but he's brought her up as his own, and he's such a nice guy. So it can happen. You can find good people out there. But another thing that I was going to bring, the element of the kids, is well, I was going to say naturally, but majority of times the kids go with the mother. as in their prime.
Like, can you just take them? I'm gonna get married to someone else. Just keep 'em.
No, not quite like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, a majority of the times, the kids will go to the mother, and that'll be the primary place, their primary caregiver, the home.
All right, the caregiver. Go, carry on.
I got it. Spit it out. And so that leaves the male part. A majority of the time, we're talking about a female-male relationship here,
Yeah.
but that leaves the man
Free to do what they
get
want.
married again.
See, that's another thing. I won't get divorced because I'd want them to suffer as well. Oh, you can't have full reign of this. You can't ruin my life and then still get married again. That would well piss me off.
Well, but that's another factor. That's another factor in what would hold a woman back more than a man. But I'm not
Yeah.
saying, again, I know men have the, they've got the emotional attachment with their kids, but generally it is easier for the male to get married again.
Mm. But then if you were at that point of divorce, you'd be so fed up of the whole thing, I would have imagined, that you'd be like, just do what you want. I really do not care. But obviously it would hurt later on down the line.
I just think you're thinking in one situation. I don't think that's true for everyone.
I think initially you'd feel like that because there'd be the emotions would be high. You'd be like, effing and blinding and whatever. You'd be that angry with the person. But later on down the line, once everything's calmed down, it would be very hurtful, I guess.
And there have been situations where we've thought, okay, the divorce was the best thing, because there's been some horrible situations where you think, oh my God, I wouldn't, I don't know if the person is safe in the marriage. I stress about them all the time. So it's better that they're divorced. So
if it comes down to safety, I think, is it worth putting anyone in danger? If tomorrow you got a phone call and, heaven forbid, it was, this person had died. I mean, I don't see how you'd be able to live with yourself anyway with that. If it got to that stage where it was down to the safety. But then obviously that's changed over time. Because had that been a few years ago.
But no, I think we're just talking about our own point of view. I think there's still families out there that would be like, no, you carry on. It doesn't matter what happens. You carry on.
Well, then
do it for the kids.
Yeah. It's a tough one because if it's about the fact that there was physical abuse, then that's something that gets then passed on to kids as well.
But even in the community, physical abuse is sometimes, it was a slap, get over it.
Mm.
That is still seen as, hey, just try again. It doesn't matter, just try again.
It is.
So
yeah, no, it's definitely a tough one. Let's take a step. I mean, I don't have an answer for that, obviously, because I think the end point of this podcast, I'm sure, will be everyone has to make that decision based on the situation. We are talking about it from a point of view of, look, I was going to say, unfortunately, we haven't been divorced, but fortunately,
all in good time.
So it's very hard for me to understand the emotions. Like, obviously, I can see it from an outsider's point of view, but to be that person.
And it's always
tough.
funny. Sometimes you have situations where you find out about a couple getting divorced, and you're like, "Oh my God, I didn't think that it was that bad," because people have this persona.
This Bollywood. Don't talk about Bollywood. I swear, if you mention Bollywood again,
I swear I'm not going to talk about Bollywood. Okay. I will put that on pause.
Bollywood.
But on social media, you display those pictures of the hugging, the kissing, the. Oh God, I'm not going to say it, but I want to. Yeah, the Bollywood scene of you having brilliant time. Sorry, I had to say it. And it's completely a different story behind closed doors. But the facade that we do for.
But then this is the social. Yeah, but this is the social media. It's the next thing from the community thing that we keep talking about. We want to show people that everything's okay. My life is okay, where it's usually not. And I don't know if this is true, right? But I've noticed it, I suppose, a bit. People that tend to be on social media most are the ones that have the crappiest life, because I don't understand how you'd have the time and to do it. But then I'm not into social media, I guess.
Well, it's funny. I saw a social media a post basically, and there was a couple and they're a lovely couple, and there was loads of pictures of them, love, nice, whatever. And me and my
Love nice.
husband love, nice pictures, blah blah blah,
Yeah.
and all that. And I go to my husband, why don't we do what our reality is rather than so I want to strangle you kind of pictures? Not really. I'm not encouraging violence here, but not the pretty. Let's do it for the world pictures. We were saying, why don't we do it? Hey, I've had enough. Get out of my face, kind of pictures. I wonder what kind of reaction that would
But
get.
I think that's the sort of stuff that is coming out now. So I was seeing this model that was in a photo shoot and stuff, and then she'd actually show that her stomach, she'd let go of her stomach and it'd all flab out, and so that's becoming a thing as well. Social media.
I think that's good, to be honest. I remember I used to know this lady who lived in Norway, and everyone would be like, "Oh, we love, living abroad in a different country." And everyone, yeah, you'd put that out because you'd want everyone to be like, "Oh my God, she's moved away to a brilliant new country."
And it
And
works.
Norway was a lovely country, by the way. I'm just saying that because some of our
There's an
listeners are
advert
from
for
Norway.
Norway.
No, because some of our listeners are from Norway. It was a
Okay.
lovely country, and I would return there. And there was another lady a friend that I knew from Norway, and she used to hate Norway. And I used to always love reading her posts because it was like, oh God, it's snowing again. But anyway, have you realised we've come off the tangent, on a tangent, and we moved away from the topic that we're meant to be on? And the topic we're meant to be on is divorce, just to remind ourselves. Another thing is, should we teach our kids what divorce is? Because it's happening a lot in families.
Okay, so this is actually something that is taught in schools, from what I understand. And again, I think
Really?
I've said this on the podcast, where the family structures are different. Nowadays, you don't just have the mum, dad, and the 2.4, all that sort of stuff. You don't have that, so they teach.
I like your school. It seems like they teach a lot. I don't know what they do in my school, my kids' school.
I don't know if they actually do it. They told us they do it. Whether they do it, I haven't got a clue. But they do teach, stepchildren and this and that and the other, and it does raise questions, which is great. So as part of that, I suppose you do have to, let's just get through the sex education talk, and then we'll talk about the divorce one after that, because there's a lot of talks we've got to have, and they're hard conversations. They're massive conversations.
Because again, yes, my daughter's asked about certain couples, and she's like, okay, I don't get it, Mum. How comes the dad's living there and the mum's living there?
Yeah.
And I have had to explain to her, look, they just live separate. I do use
But then the
D
tough
word.
thing is, are you then, and this was another part,
Normalizing it.
yeah, where
Normalizing it.
it's okay if you're not happy with each other, just divorce. Because this is the other part. I was going to pick up on this earlier, but we got into another conversation, as we usually do. But are we then saying, look, if you're not happy with the situation, get out? But then is that the easy way out? Because no marriage is always easy. Most of the time, it's bloody tough.
Yeah, I've got to say, God, being one of the social media, it has been a tough old road being married. It's not, it's not an easy one.
But then this is what I'm saying. So we're teaching kids about divorce, but are we not just opening it up as in, if you're not happy, just do what you need to do? Which isn't, I suppose, a bad thing, be happy, which I'm never against.
Because quite a lot of people that we know have stuck to marriages because they are so worried that they're going to upset their families. And that's why they don't tell them what's been happening in their lives, because they don't want to upset their mum, their dad.
Okay, so on this point, let's go down this, because, hey, this podcast is for Asian, British Asians, Western Asians, and trying to raise awareness. This is a massive topic, actually. How much we tell our parents about our marriages. If you're not having a good time, would you be that open with your family?
I am, probably because I've got a big mouth, but I am quite open.
No, you're not. You are
You don't
not.
think so?
I don't think so. This is obviously it shouldn't be on the podcast, but we're going to keep it in, because no, I don't think so. I think I'm more open than you are.
I think we're going to end up having a fight. I don't want to broadcast our fight. I don't think that's true. I think quite a lot of people, do not reveal everything about what's going on, because you don't want to upset your parents because you want them to think that your life is going good.
Oh,
And that's with
we need to shut our mouths then because we always don't care about parents then.
No, but that's why quite a lot of a majority of people that we know that have gone through divorces and have had pretty bad marriages is because they don't want to tell their parents that they've had such a tough time. And why is that? Why is the Asian community, are we brought up to make our parents think, are we brought up to by our parents to say, oh, make sure you always keep me happy?
I think it would be the fear of upset. Yeah, no, I get, upsetting them's tough. I mean, they're getting older.
And also, wait, I just thought, is it because we spend so much on our marriages that we think, oh my God, I shouldn't get divorced? We've invested so much
No,
money into it.
I don't think so. Well, maybe.
I think that might be
Maybe.
an element because when you spend so much on a marriage and all of a sudden you're going to end it, that's a
Mm,
big issue as well. And
yeah.
then you do get people of, again, the wonderful community saying, "Eh, ne paise kharche si," so you spent a lot of money on it. What did you get out of it?
I don't know. I don't know if I've never heard anyone say that. Have you
Belle,
heard
I don't think you go out. You're such a hermit.
it?
I don't know where you live, but
What?
people do say that.
Do they?
Yes.
Where are you
Women.
hearing this? These aunties that you're talking to, you need to stop talking to the aunties. You need to talk to real people. Aunties are not real people. No, I'm joking. I'm only kidding. I'm kidding. But yeah, I don't.
Stop offending the aunties out there.
I've never had those conversations where they said, "Oh, you spent so."
I
Well,
hear it all the time. Oh,
where?
Falanine. So and so have got married. They spent so much on their marriage. Was it worth it? It is something that's said.
Okay, fine. We'll take it as it's said, and I just don't
Gospel.
know about it. Okay, fine. Yeah, but these. Okay, so moving on a bit from that topic, mental health. Women are suffering more with their mental health than a lot of other communities. And I know that was such a generic, I don't have any figures right now on me, but I can dig out some figures. But again, the Asian women population is higher than a lot of the other populations. Is this why? The stress caused by a marriage that you're not happy in, to keep your
Maybe
parents
big.
happy, to keep everyone else happy.
I don't think parents go out of their ways bringing up their children or their girls to think you must stay unhappy. I think it might be as well as a daughter, you feel that you want to keep your parents happy, but where does that stem from? That's the question.
Mm,
Because for me, it would be I would feel that my parents have done so much for me that I wouldn't want to upset them.
mm.
And that's probably why marriages are dragged out, unhappy marriages are dragged out for so long. And then when you're at that point where you just can't take it anymore and it is affecting your mental health and you're almost at the point of, I can't take it, that's when the lid is opened almost and the can of worms basically. And does that hit harder than telling them as you go along through the years that you're just opening all this up, and that would your parents feel that bad for letting you suffer that much?
The other side of it is the financial security.
Mm.
A lot of people don't want to move back home. They want to have their own place so they can live their own life because we're adults, right? Why would you want to, right?
And a majority of time the male earns more than the female.
And this is where the tough thing is, because if you're the caregiver, you have then a lot of the times gone down a pay scale, your career's been affected. So even that financial burden is then put on women. And that was one of the reasons we started FYI.
Yeah, I agree.
And
I
just to
completely.
explain, sorry, just to explain on that point, FYI is a community based company to help women that are returning to work, to help with their mental health, to help with their financial health as well.
And also, if anyone's going through any abuse, it's to support you. And obviously, you still, a majority of women still continue going to work, even though what's happening behind closed doors. So, like you said, FYI, you can find us on Facebook and on Instagram. So, please do look for that.
Okay, so just moving back a bit.
So basically, in certain situations, the reason for a divorce to happen is because the female earns more than the male. So the wife earns more than the husband. And that in itself is a cause of almost, would you say, jealousy?
I saw this. I can't remember what it was. Whether it was a social. It must have been something social media. But basically, what it was saying, the best partner is the one that encourages their partner to learn new things and that teaches them, so they become empowered. And I was like, that's a really. I totally agree with that. If you
But
want
if
your partner to be doing better than you or better than what they were doing before, that should be a compliment to both of you. And I think I really agreed with that. I really did.
I do agree with that, but again, I love talking about the community side of things.
Yes.
If you saw a couple and I think it would be like, oh my God, she's earning more than he is. How embarrassing. And that does happen. Obviously, you don't mix in the same circles that I do.
No, I don't.
I don't think
No,
you mix in any circles, pal.
no, nothing wrong with that. But yeah, no, I don't think so. Because I was talking to my husband about this a bit. In fact, it was a conversation we were having. And someone that I used to work with, they were in management. So the lady enjoyed her job. So she carried on. She's in a high position, national manager, da, da, da. But her husband retired early because he didn't enjoy his job.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's great. They both got what they wanted out of the situation. And me and my husband were having this conversation of, is it the man's role to, that usually men do tend to earn more and carry on with the financial side and make sure the mortgage is paid, all that sort of stuff. But I'm like, no, it does. If I enjoyed my job and I wanted to work every hour of the day, why would my husband not be sitting at home looking after the kids and making sure that they're doing what they're doing?
But that doesn't typically happen, does it? It's usually the woman that is the one that gives up work. And
No, I get that. That's what usually happens. But I don't think we should throw a blanket over it and say, oh, going back to your point, I mean, everyone looks at it weird. I don't look at it weird. What is wrong with that? I don't understand. It's great. I'm like, you go, girl.
But just talking about that, I remember in Norway, we moved there, and on the first day, I saw so many men with their kids, and I just found that really unusual because in the UK you don't find that because over there the men would take time off work after the child was born, and so would the female. And I just think that's a wonderful thing. But anyway, I'm going off on a tangent there.
Okay, so one thing, how I'd link this to the divorce thing, because this is what the podcast is about. I have changed my view on divorce quite drastically from, no, you need to keep on going. And I've realized that's not the way people should be living their life. And the same thing, going back to this financial thing, I think if what makes you happy is what's going to keep you mentally sane, your kids mentally sane and happy, and surely that's all that matters. And on that point, we're going to leave it there. So it'd be great for the listeners to send in their views and experiences on Facebook, changing_suits, and Instagram. Go on, you can.
Changing suits.
Okay, perfect. Lovely. Thanks very much for listening, and we'll catch you on the next podcast. Bye from me.
And bye from me.
Follow us on Instagram and Facebook, changing_suits, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.